think I just get so excited when I see Crystal and Kim. I'm like, let's start talking now. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Take it away.
Great. So thank you all for joining us. I realize, TT, that you are, like part of our incredible team at the commissary, but like as the director of this piece, like I'm excited to talk to you too. So I want to sort of start the question by asking the three of you, what does leadership look like to you? And what is the call to action? How has that shown up in your life? Crystal, do you want to start us off? Yeah, what does leadership look like to you?
Leadership looks like to me the functioning of integrity, taking a stand for what you believe. Give me 1 second.
All good.
Can you see me? I'm sorry. Taking a stand for what you believe in and doing what's right,
Absolutely.
And what is that call to doing what's right? How has that shown up in your life?
Right now, in my life right now, pretty much the people that surround me that has came to help me pro bono, like my attorney Kim Cole and other great attorneys, just taking a stand and seeing that my situation was so unfair and unjust, and just being here for me in the time of need.
Yeah. Cam, I mean, she sort of just like handed it over to you. What does leadership look like to you?
And feel free, Kim, in that to sort of share anything in terms of introducing yourself to the folks here and the folks watching.
So leadership to me is about motivating others to act toward achieving a goal. And in Crystal's specific case, I am one of Crystal's team of awesome attorneys. And Crystal has not only involved herself in this process, because at first I want to share a little detail that you guys may or may not know. When I met Crystal, someone asked her in an interview how she felt about voting. And her response just broke my heart, because she said she would never vote again. And I talked to Crystal and I believe encouraged her to utilize her situation to encourage people to vote, not to be discouraged, because I believe she said her children had said they wouldn't vote. I mean, everyone was discouraged because the prospect of spending time in prison for voting is very daunting. And so Crystal changed her position. I was very proud of her in future interviews, where she indicated that whenever she was eligible, she absolutely would be exercising her right to vote. And also, she's motivated now and has established an organization, Crystal Mason, the Fight Against Voter Suppression, excuse me, to encourage others to vote. So I'm very proud of the progress. Excuse me, I apologize. And to me, that's what leadership looks like.
Yeah.
I'm curious, just to sort of jump in on that, if that point, Crystal, if you could speak to what flipped your decision. What was that moment for you where you moved from I'm never going to vote again to not only am I going to vote, but I am going to encourage others to also take a stand?
What motivated me was when I went back to prison. I went back to prison and I had to do 10 months. And when you're like 6 months to the door, you have to take re-entry courses. Mm-hmm. So when I went to the re-entry course, they have your supervisor release officers come out and they talk to you and they tell you what they expect. The paperwork that they had me had nothing to say that we had lost our rights to voting. When I asked the guy, because again, this is why I went back to prison, because I violated because of the voting charge. Mm-hmm. So when I was questioning them and I was asking them different things, they said, "Oh, you're a felon. You can't vote in Texas." And I was like, "That's incorrect." And then when I told him who I was, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are. I know your case." And moving forward, I went to the halfway house. So being at the halfway house and they're giving us voter registration cards, who's telling us we can't vote? If we took a reentry class, that they came out to talk to us, to reiterate us, to go back into society, and you're not giving us the information, but yet we go to the halfway house, which is another reentry course that you go through, do transitioning, coming back, and everybody, people that don't have their license, people don't have IDs, people don't have their social security cards, they check that box, yes, for that voter registration card, because it's another form of ID. It's two forms of ID that you have. Yet they're giving it to us at the location, but no one has told us we're ineligible to use it.
Wow. And so that was that moment for you when that moment for you was around resisting what you observed to be an unjust system, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
So my babies, while I was in jail, my babies got deputized and they were working the Battles campaign. So that encouraged me even more to see that, instead of them being ashamed, because that's what I felt like. I'm going back to prison. I'm leaving my babies again. They're going to be so ashamed. But they wasn't. They showed me more strength than I could imagine. Like, we understand, Mom. We're right here. And knocking on the doors and talking to people and doing phone drives and explaining that who my mom is, and have you heard my mom's story? And encouraging people to go to the polls, and it just kind of changed everything. And I was just like, okay, it's going to be good. We're going to make the best out of it instead of letting it be a bad situation. We just tried to change it into something positive, and that's what we've been doing here lately.
Yeah, what a phenomenal example of community leadership. Kim, I'm wondering if you could sort of walk us through how you found out about Crystal's case and sort of that first meeting, and a little bit of the journey of you working together, because I know you weren't her first lawyer on the case, right? Correct?
Right. I was not Crystal Mason's criminal attorney during the trial for which she was convicted of illegally voting. I joined the fight to obtain justice after her conviction. I met Crystal indirectly through our pastor, Pastor Frederick Haynes. He contacted Next Generation Action Network, which is a national social justice and civil rights group. And they champion all kinds of causes all across the country. And we took on Crystal Mason's case. I'm a general counsel of Next Generation Action Network. And we took on Crystal's case as soon as we found out that a Black woman in the neighboring county had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for voting, for casting a provisional ballot. We were up in arms. And so we eagerly joined with Crystal and have been with her since, fighting for justice for her unlawful conviction for completing a provisional ballot. And so basically that's how I met her, was indirectly through our pastor and through Next Generation Action Network.
And wait, how long has that been now? What year was that originally?
That was in 2018, I believe. Or was it 2017, Crystal? I think it was 2018.
2018.
I mean, I feel like that's one of my favorite dynamics whenever we like have the joy of chatting with you both, that we get to see your true sisterhood, which is, I feel like, one of the things that you both named in our earliest call is what actually has grown out of this relationship, out of coming together to join a fight, has been a true a true bond. And I feel like that in itself is a wonderful inspiration for all of us, you know.
And also too, the ways in which like community takes so many different forms. I mean, like for TT and I, like our community of theater people has sort of taken on this new shape and texture because of the pandemic and us getting to work with people for the first time virtually and all of the ways that that's changed. But for the two of you, community has grown out of a church family, out of a need to fight for justice, and that two people like who did not know each other before this moment have not just like had a transactional like, I'm gonna be your lawyer, I'm gonna be your client, I'm gonna do this and that, and then we're gonna go our separate ways. Like you two have formed a family around like this need to create justice, and that it's a lifelong struggle, and that's created a sisterhood, and that's so incredible to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. I absolutely love Crystal, and have met her family, her children, her cousins, and brothers and sisters, and
everybody.
So, yes, we absolutely. I'm an honorary family member at this point.
Yes. And you gotta remember this though. You remember I had to go back for 10 months, so I was like an emotional wreck. And she was there for me for everything. I'm talking about she came down there to visit me. She was there for me whenever I called, whenever I needed her. When I was crying, I'm frustrated, when my birthday, for everything, you know. She's more than an attorney. I can't even put that in. She's like my big sister. And she's just been there for me. She's never changed. And that's what I love about her. She never wavered. She's been the same from the beginning.
I mean, you both challenge us to take allyship up to another level, you know, because that's what it takes, and to transform advocacy into family, you know, where you share a struggle and in sharing a goal is profound. And I'm wondering, Kim, if you could give us a little bit, you've shared this with us quite a bit, but just for folks who are maybe new to learning about your case, Crystal, and about the situation in Tarrant County, could you give us a little context specifically around how voter suppression has been in crisis in that part of Texas for a while now?
Certainly. Tarrant County, I'm sure everyone is aware of the voter suppression tactics that are going on all across the country right now. And Texas governor has limited the drop boxes for absentee ballots to 1 per county, including those counties that span thousands of square miles. So Texas is no stranger to voter suppression. However, Tarrant County is unique. Tarrant County is said to be the only red urban district in the country. And Tarrant County's motto is keep Tarrant County red. That's their motto, is to keep Tarrant County red. And they have demonstrated that they will do so at any expense, even at the expense of an innocent woman's freedom. Mm-hmm. The judge in Crystal's case, actually the election judge where she voted, was her neighbor, not distant neighbor, literally across the street neighbor. You can look out her front door and look directly at his house. He was a Republican election judge, and instead of identifying Crystal to the county board of elections, he personally called the district attorney in Tarrant County to report Crystal, not once, but twice. So he was making it a point to personally make contact with the district attorney to assure that Crystal would be prosecuted for simply attempting to exercise her right to vote.
Just the attempt.
Yeah.
Just the attempt for essentially completing a form. And this is not something that should be criminalized at all. And folks in Tarrant County should be outraged. However, like I said, Tarrant County is unique, and they are a minority majority county. However, minorities in Tarrant County don't always show up at the polls. And so if minorities showed up, not to say that every minority is a monolith, but minorities tend to vote more liberal than conservative. If minorities showed up at the polls, it could serve to flip Tarrant County from red to blue, which would in turn very likely flip the state of Texas. It is a very precarious balance they have. And so the effort to suppress the minority vote in Tarrant County is very, very extensive, and it's very real.
Can you talk to, I mean, I know that you're, doing incredible work in Texas, but it doesn't take much research at all to see the widespread attempts at like institutional broad voter suppression happening all over the country. And the ways in which like all the crazy laws, and you have to have, your, godparents land mower, sign this ballot, and you have to have, like your great grandfather sign this envelope or whatever. Like how are you fighting to encourage people to stay engaged in this process when it seems like the rules are getting even more difficult to prevent people from engaging? Like how? Yeah.
I believe that in participating in events like this one we're currently engaged in, and in letting people know that in the face of blatant efforts to suppress the vote, it is all the more imperative that we show up in mass and exercise our rights to vote. If we get discouraged and get complacent, then they will strip us of all of our rights. And we must be diligent. We must stay engaged. We must stay involved, because if we be complacent, they will roll back the clock to a day and time when we as minorities, and certainly as women, as Black, as African American, didn't even have the right to vote. We have to stay diligent. We have to pay attention to the laws that are being proposed and vote on those measures, and vote for the people who pass the laws, vote for local officials as well as the national elections. A lot of people get complacent and only vote in the quote unquote big elections, but the people that impact our daily life are the folks we really need to make sure that we show up at the polls. Everyone who was involved in Crystal's case was elected. The district attorney who chose to prosecute a mother for completing a provisional ballot was elected. The judge who sentenced her to 5 years in prison for casting a provisional ballot was elected. We must show up. As a matter of fact, right now, speaking of elections, and a shameless plug here, I apologize, but the district attorney, because what a lot of people don't know is Crystal's already served time for this on the federal side. She was on federal supervised release. Instead of waiting to see the outcome of the state case, they violated her and sent her to prison, and she's already served that sentence. And now she's looking at 5 years in state prison. So the prosecutor who sent Crystal to federal prison is actually running for a judge position right now, today, in Tarrant County, against a beautiful sister. So all I'm saying, and especially to the minorities in Tarrant County, please show up and vote, because it makes a difference. If you're going to elect a prosecutor who thinks it's okay to send Black people to prison for voting, there's a problem.
And we see the ways that, like, you know, even looking at the current situation on the Supreme Court, that people who are willing to align themselves with certain policies get moved up very, very quickly to positions that, you know, they may not be fully prepared for. But
absolutely, absolutely,
to be invested at the micro level before things get there.
Yeah, and I just want to say the DAs the prosecutor, the federal prosecutor who sent Crystal to prison, her name is Megan Fahey. Please understand, this is a woman who sent a Black mother to prison for voting.
That didn't care, that didn't want to hear about, only judged me for my past. Didn't want to hear about what I did when I came out in 2015. Moving forward, so listening, I guess she didn't believe in rehabilitation, because she didn't want to even talk to my attorney. She already had her mind made up. Anything with the federal system, anything up under a year and day, I could have did at home, on a leg monitor, back at the halfway house. I didn't have to go back to prison. She made it blankly that I was going back to prison, and she didn't want to hear nothing that Kim or Allison had to say. That's how horrific she was. And so who she's running against, hey,
Mary Ellen Hicks.
Who she's there you go, Mary Ellen. Yeah.
Mary Ellen Hicks, who is currently
Mary and I want to tell you about this lady. Didn't even know she was a judge, an attorney, anything. Automatically reached out to me and invited me and Kim to their house. I met her with her sister, Deborah Peoples. Invited me to the house, and they were trying to figure out, what can we do? How can we help you? And this is who this lady is. They don't know me from Adam and Eve, but reached out to me like, hey, this is not right. What can we do to fix this? Who can we reach out to? So let
me make this clear. This was years ago, before she ever considered running. This was years ago. She reached out to us. We had a meeting. I met with some community leaders in Tarrant County. And they were outraged, just as outraged. Nobody knew this had happened before she had already been convicted, tried, convicted, and sentenced. Nobody knew this was even going on. And so we reached out, some community leaders reached out to us and asked, how can we help with this fight? Because it's ridiculous that a woman has to go to prison for 5 years when this is the same county who gave the quote unquote affluenza teen probation for killing 4 people. Gave a judge probation for forging signatures to get himself on the ballot to get elected. He got probation. So this is the same county. However, when a Black woman is presented with a much less egregious offense, she's sent to prison for 5 years. So Mary Ellen Hicks reached out along with others in Tarrant County, and they wanted to see what they could do to right this wrong and to reverse this injustice. And that is who is running against the very prosecutor, the very attorney who had Crystal sent to federal prison for this same offense.
Kim, I'm wondering if you could explain to us and to everyone watching a little bit more about what a provisional ballot is, just to give that information out there, because, you know, what I know from so much of the trial and the particular portion that we read in our reading was around the issue of Crystal's knowledge. Did she fill out the provisional ballot with an intent, with the knowledge that she was doing so illegally, and thus an intent to
fraud the election? Yeah,
exactly. And I think for me, I always find that element confusing, you know, and I just wonder if you could talk more about, for folks who might be in a position of being unsure, right? Of being I feel like part of the intimidation is the lack of knowledge, you know what I mean? And that's also what's being taken advantage of. So I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit more about that.
Certainly. A provisional ballot, first of all, there's a Help Americans Vote Act that essentially lays out what all of the parameters of provisional ballots. And the provisional ballots are utilized when a question regarding a voter's eligibility has to be resolved before their vote is actually counted. And so in some instances, someone may have changed a name, or may have been at the wrong polling place, or any number of reasons where eligibility is in question.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a provisional ballot is utilized. This is something that has been codified to help Americans vote. There's the Help Americans Vote Act. This should never have been charged as a criminal offense. So in order to be charged with voter fraud, a voter, number one, has to be ineligible. Number two, has to know that they're ineligible. And number three, they have to vote. Crystal, we will concede that she was ineligible. Well, I won't concede that she was ineligible because Texas law is a bit ambiguous with regard to Crystal's position as far as her supervisor on from federal prison. So there's a question as to whether or not she's eligible. I'll say that. And as far as her knowing, she absolutely had no clue. As you guys indicated in the reading of her transcript, her supervised release officer, and I don't believe you guys read that part, but you've read the transcript. The representative from the Federal Bureau of Prisons testified on the stand that he did not tell Crystal that she had the right to, whether or not she was eligible to vote. He also went as far as to say that they didn't even have a process in place to advise inmates as to whether or not they would be eligible to vote upon their release. It wasn't part of the process. It wasn't contained in the conditions of her release. There was nothing ever said about it. And because felons in Texas do have the right to vote, Crystal legitimately thought that she was eligible to vote. So she showed up at her polling place. She drove for over an hour in the rain during rush hour, and she went to vote on the very last day and showed up just before the polls closed. So she would not have gone through those measures had she any thought that she was not eligible. And then also there's the issue as to whether or not she actually voted. Her provisional ballot was tossed out. It wasn't counted.
So she technically did not vote.
She did not vote. And so for her to be convicted it defies logic. But if you look at it through the lens of voter suppression, you understand how we got here. But Crystal should never have even been put on trial for this. She did not commit a crime. The district attorney who put her on trial herself violated election law. She used her work email to solicit funds from her employees and then claimed, oops, I didn't know.
Is she going to prison?
No, she was given the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Even though she had been in several elections before, she was given the benefit, and she's
even though she had the knowledge that she was breaking the law, she was still given. She was given the benefit. She is the top prosecutor in Tarrant County. She is the individual that is charged with, she's the individual that is responsible for prosecuting violations of the law. So you would think that this person would know the law. She had participated in several elections at that point. You'd think she'd know the election code and know whether or not her actions violated the election code. However, she was given the benefit of the doubt and was not charged because they said that she didn't know. We believe her. She didn't know. Yet they want someone who is newly released from prison to know the election code. They're going to say that she knew, even though the folks who released her told them that she didn't know.
that they didn't tell her that.
And that she lives in a state where felons are technically eligible to vote.
Absolutely. But they said Crystal knew.
I mean, I feel like, I think one of the things that is the most sort of like blood burning about it is that so much of this sort of argument in that trial is around the aspect of believability.
Yeah.
And so using one's race, one's sort of criminal history to criminalize someone's character, I feel like is one of the things that's the most astounding to me, that it actually didn't feel like it was around the law at all, that it was actually a very personal attack, which I know, Kim, you have talked about as well, that, you know, Crystal, living in a primarily white neighborhood, had received personal attacks prior to this, in terms of not only voter suppression, but just white supremacy.
Harassment, moving the bus station and all of those other,
Exactly. That.
All of that, if you look at her conviction against the backdrop of all of the racist attacks that had been perpetrated against her in her neighborhood, the fact that her neighbor was the state star witness, Crystal never saw him at the polling place, never saw him. He never assisted her. However, he testified on the stand that he assisted Crystal, gave an incorrect time that she was there. Crystal was still at work at the time he claimed that he assisted her. This was all orchestrated. And then he personally called the district attorney, who agreed to prosecute her. From my understanding, they pressed the importance of her being prosecuted because they wanted her out of that neighborhood. And also, as in the closing statement of the district attorney in her case, they wanted to send a message. Who do they want to send a message to? People who look like Crystal. They wanted to send a message to suppress minority voters in Tarrant County. They want to keep Tarrant County red. This is a problem. A woman is looking at going to prison. Not just a woman, a mother, a sister, a grandmother. Her daughter is pregnant and she's getting ready to have her first child. Crystal also took in custody of her brother's children. So she is the cornerstone of her family. This not only impacts her, this impacts her children. This and her elderly mother lives with her. So this impacts her mother. This impacts her grandchildren. This impacts her nieces and nephews who she's raised. This is a travesty. And I sincerely hope, and I appreciate your efforts to bring attention to this, because it is imperative that we prevent her from going back to prison. In my belief, she will be a political prison. Her prosecution, her conviction, her sentence was all politically motivated. This was all amid the rhetoric of all of the rampant voter suppression that wasn't. It was, this is what was going on. This was all politically motivated. And we have to be proactive. So often in our community, I am a civil rights attorney. I have several lawsuits against law enforcement for instances of excessive force and violation of civil rights. And so often we're behind the issue. We're out in the streets, we're outraged, we're protesting, we're doing all of this after the fact. And although Crystal has been convicted, she isn't in prison yet. She's currently out on an appellate bond. And it is imperative that we act now and act immediately and try to make all the noise we can to get this turned around, to get the governor to pardon her or commute her sentence or whatever to prevent this injustice from happening. We have an opportunity here to not just react, but to be proactive. we can change the outcome of this. I believe if enough people get behind this and join us in this effort, we can change the outcome.
Kim, I think that's an excellent launching point in terms to what the current status of Crystal's case is, and what can folks watching and us here today do to partner with you, Crystal, and with the fight against voter suppression at large.
So we are currently drafting her final state level appeal, which is due to be filed in November. Mm-hmm. And the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals has the option to agree to hear her case. If they do, she will remain out on bond until they make a decision with regard to her case, which they should hear her case because the law is ambiguous and because the state did not prove their case against her. So this was an unjust ruling and an unlawful application of the law. So it was I would say an error in the application of the law in her case. So we are hopeful that the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals will actually hear her case. They also can make the decision to not hear her case, in which instance Crystal will have to surrender herself and start serving her 5-year sentence.
What is that?
And that's what we're trying to prevent. And what you can do, what your viewers can do, because there is one person who can fix this.
Greg.
And yes, Governor Greg Abbott. Governor Greg Abbott has stepped in and saved the day for another mother of 3. Now, she doesn't happen to have the same skin complexion as Crystal, but surely Governor Abbott is not biased. Surely he's not driven by the color of one's skin. Surely he recognizes that injustice is injustice, period, regardless of who it's perpetrated against. So if he can step in and save the day for Shelley Luther, I don't know if you all are familiar with Shelley Luther. Shelley Luther is a white female who, during the time where there were orders in Dallas County for closing beauty shops and barbershops and bars and restaurants, during the height of the COVID outbreak locally, Shelley Luther openly, publicly, willingly violated the law. She violated the orders. Went to a judge gave her an opportunity. Will you please close your shop and stand by the county orders? She made a very public display of ripping up the citation. And when she went back to court, the judge sentenced her to 7 days in jail. And Governor Greg Abbott stepped in. He said he would not have this mother of 3 serve jail time for willingly violating his own orders. In his mind, this would be unjust. So here we have another mother of 3. Unlike Shelley Luther, she did not willingly violate the law. As a matter of fact, she didn't violate the law at all.
Exactly.
Because in order for Crystal to have committed a crime, she had to have known that she was not eligible to vote. And she had no clue that she was not eligible to vote. So Governor Greg Abbott can fix this. So we're urging folks to call Governor Greg Abbott, email him, show up. I mean, whatever you need to do. We did go down for a protest in Austin. Whatever measures we need to take to get in his face and kind of jerk his coattail and let him know, hey, sir, you missed one over here. Since we're correcting these injustices, we're yeah, you missed one.
And also it sounds like
not biased. Surely he's not biased. Surely Governor Abbott is a Christian man. He's supposed to, it's from everything he said, I've met him. He's supposed to be a Christian man. Do the right thing, Greg Abbott.
Please.
Right thing. And pardon Crystal Mason.
And
Greg Abbott was just in Benbrook. I'm right around the corner in Ringgold. So my attorneys are available for any kind of meeting.
Absolutely. And it feels
I
like
say we track him down on his next block walk, Crystal. he was apparently he was walking the block campaigning because Tarrant County, like I said, Tarrant County is pivotal in Texas remaining a red state. And so Governor Abbott was actually block walking with some candidates in Tarrant County. So
15 minutes away from Rendon. He was in Benbrook.
We'll track him down next time. I'm not above rolling up on him.
And that information folks can find on Crystal's website, and we also, if you check out the Rattlestick page, we are constantly updating, posting with the details about how you can contact Governor Greg Abbott and partner with Crystal in this advocacy. And I feel like what is so striking to me about the sort of power of the allyship that you are displaying, and Crystal, the community that has rallied around you is displaying, is actually the force of intervention. When a system is set up to take advantage of our most vulnerable, it is actually coming together. It is impossible to do it otherwise. And in fact, that has a rippling effect. Crystal's story connects to anyone who might be in a similar situation in Tarrant County. Empowering them to go out and vote affects Tarrant County, which affects the state of Texas, which affects the United States of America. So I feel like in your journey, Crystal, is actually an incredible symbol of the interconnectedness between us all and the vitality that we come against oppression together, come against injustice together. And I am forever inspired by the two of you for, again, what you enact in your sisterhood, the way in which you model for us a more authentic type of like civic engagement and true advocacy. I actually can't even express enough how moved and transformed I have been through the meeting of you two. So I wanted to thank you for that. And we do have space for folks. If you have any questions, feel free to send us in the chat or through Facebook. We have folks monitoring those. And I just, while we wait for some of those, Crystal, kind of wanted to pivot to you to, Crystal.
I can talk now. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Crystal did not watch the reading. She was devastated. Just even getting the rehearsal, it just took her back to that moment. And I told her at some point, we're going to have to get together and we're going to have to make our peace with this, because this is your story. This is your story. I mean, as raw as it is, but she hasn't watched it yet. She's aware that it's of the dates that it's going to be running. We are planning on actually having a viewing party. And so she will eventually watch it, but she has not watched it yet. It was way too emotionally taxing for her at this point, because she's still facing the very real possibility of spending 5 years in prison for this. And so to relive that entire trial and all of the fallacies that occurred in her representation or non-representation, I guess I should say, it triggers her, and she couldn't even discuss it.
And I think encouraging folks to continue to share her story. If you saw it and were impacted, if you are watching this and feel impacted to share her story, because I think we can also access people in higher and higher levels of power who can come behind and alongside and propel this forward. I want to
also
just
recognize too the way that like this is this is happening. This is a prototype for voter suppression activities happening all across this country.
Mm-hmm.
And to recognize that if this can happen in Texas, in Tarrant County, which is so consequential, this can happen in Wisconsin, this can happen in Michigan, this can happen in California, where like the state is so blue, it's like indigo, that they're like putting up fake boxes that they're throwing away ballots. Like this is not a Tarrant County problem, this is not a Texas problem, this is an American problem. And that wherever we are, we have a responsibility to make sure that our communities are coming together to be activated around the necessary need to fight against voter suppression.
Yes. And Reggie, I feel like if anything, this pandemic has like done positively, a positive impact is that it has eroded, I feel like, boundaries of distance. And so that when I look at you, Crystal, and I look at you, Kim, I see my neighbors, because honestly, I also haven't met Reggie D. White in person. So we, the three of us right now, share equal degrees of separation. And in fact, like, if there's nothing I feel like the summer has proven to us, it is the power of our togetherness. And it is, Kim, as you say, the imperative that we stand together and activate our true sense of being a community. I wanna, okay, we have about.
And Tyler, let me add one.
Please.
One of the most important things that people can do is to vote. Phone a friend, grab a friend, bring your family. Please go vote. If we cannot get to Greg Abbott, perhaps we can appeal to a higher authority for a pardon. And hopefully we will have someone in office who will be willing to seek justice and to see that justice is served in this matter. Absolutely. So please vote.
Absolutely. We have one more audience question, and then I want to pivot to you, Crystal, for the last word. But for the group, this comes to us from the amazing Lee Sunday Evans. Is there any aspect of the way the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act that would have affected how Crystal's case was handled? And if not, is there federal legislation that should be in place to protect people from this kind of local abuse of power?
The Constitution is in place to protect people from this type of abuse of power. Obviously, as African Americans, we have had our rights trampled upon. We have had to fight for every right that we have. These rights were not obvious and were not given to us by the words in that Constitution. The courts had to decide whether or not these same rights that applied to everybody else applied to us as Black people. And so the Constitution is in place to protect us from this type of abuse. However, as everybody knows, the system is not broken. It's working exactly as it is designed to do. But I think that the majority of people at this point, and I think perhaps this is another effect of the pandemic, people have awakened and people are seeing what's going on. So I would encourage people, I'm encouraged right now in Tarrant County, certainly for the first time since I have been in Texas, there are 9 Black women running for positions. Okay. So people are motivated. Because this is what I say. This is what I mean when I say break the system. The system's not broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to work. But this is how you break the system. Racism is a cancer that is eating away at the moral fiber of this country. And you don't cure cancer from the outside. Get in this system and vote out racism, run for offices, break this system, and get rid of racism It has no place where there should be justice.
Amen. Amen. Crystal, I want to throw our last question to you. You know, you started this incredible organization, Crystal Mason to Fight. You have become a powerful community leader. And we're just curious what the fight looks like to you now. And, if there's anything you want to speak to about the experience of becoming a leader through the process of starting your own organization and leading them in the fight right now.
Crystal Mason, the fight against voter suppression was started in regards to my situation, but I don't want it to be just about my situation. I want to tell people, don't let my story discourage you, but encourage you to get to the polls. I want you guys to know that even though I'm going through what I'm going through right now, that it's a spiritual journey for me. So I'm trusting God and victory is already going to be won. So I am going to act like it is. I'm not going to sit there and ball up in the bed and cry and, oh my God, let me get my stuff in order. I'm going to keep working my job. I'm going to keep living. I'm going to keep raising my kids, because I know that when you're doing right, then everything is going to come out right. So I trust God through the process. So that's why when I get furious and I get upset, when things don't go right, I say, God, I trust you. God, I trust you. Not with my eyes, but yours, God. Not going to be my way, but your way. So that's what I go on. So this organization, if you guys want to follow me, you can on what, our next event, on what we're going to do. You can text 555-888, and then you're going to text the word Crystal, it's going to be Justice, 4, Crystal. And we also have a website, crystalmasonthefight.org. And then my email, you can email me. I answer my personal emails at crystalmasonthefight@gmail.com. So right now it's new, very, very new. And I have an attorney that's over everything. And I'm just out here networking in the neighborhood, just trying to door to door, people like me, and just educate them that, hey, we have to get out here. And I run across a lot of people that has been out the system for over 10, 11, 12 years, but do not have the knowledge that they're eligible to vote because they think that they have a felony and they have a felony and they can't vote. So I just want to get out there and network and get the literature out so everybody can know their rights out here in Tarrant County.
Thank you so much. I mean, the work
Thank you guys.
You all are doing that has such a profound, personal cost to all of you, getting up and making this fight for our rights, not just a thing you do, but the fabric of who you are as a human is so inspiring. It's so motivating. And I hope the folks out there watching realize that this is what activism looks like. It's not just shouting in the streets. It is shouting in the streets, but it's also fighting in the halls of justice for justice, to change the way the laws look like, to make sure that the law protects everyone, that voting is a fundamental right. It is part of our citizenship. And so, Crystal, I want to thank you. Kim, I want to thank you. TT, I want to thank you for sharing time with us, sharing space with us, sharing your story. For those of you watching, vote. Please make a voting plan. Call 5 of your friends. Make sure they have a voting plan. Call the people you don't really talk to anymore. Make sure they have a voting plan. When we vote, things change. And it's like Kim said, that racism, injustice is a cancer that has been infecting and affecting our country since its inception. And we cannot change it from without. We have to change it from within. And so I thank you for your time. I thank you for your commitment to justice. I thank you for your commitment to honesty and to truth. Thank you for those of you watching. For those of you watching later, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing the story. Thank you. Keep up the fight. Keep it up.
No, and thank you guys. Thank you guys for reacting the story so people can really see and see how confused I was on everything. Like, is this for real? But in order for them to see that, because everybody don't read. Everybody don't read. So I thank you guys for taking the time and the opportunity to even do that. So I am really grateful. So humble and grateful. Thank you guys.
And if you've seen,
I sincerely admire Crystal.
yes.
In the midst of all of this, she has committed herself and dedicated her life to fighting against voter suppression. But not only is she fighting against voter suppression, she is fighting for her very life. She is fighting for her freedom. And in the middle of all of this, she is very humble. And you can't imagine what she goes through mentally to be facing having to spend 5 years in a cage, away from her children, away from her family, away from her mother, may even miss the birth of her grandchild. It's taxing on her. And I urge everyone to, send her a note of encouragement, pray for her. She's currently at the airport. She is taking a much needed break because she doesn't know how much longer she's going to have the opportunity to, we filed this motion next month and we don't know what's going to happen. So she's taking a much needed break and well-deserved break. She's been on the front lines battling against voter suppression and also fighting for her freedom. So I admire her. Love you, Crystal. Have a safe trip.
Love you too.
Treat yourself.
I'm so excited. I already know.
Thank you so much. Go catch your flight, Crystal. Don't miss your flight. Thank you.
I'm in here. That's why I was putting up everything I had to go through. But thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.